Chapter 14 continued. How much longer before he left? 6 days? In a rare afternoon of quiet, Ishan Han's wife took me in her arms and said, "Poor little girl." Then she explained that my mother was dead and that now my brother Ahmed was the head of the family. He was impatient to see me because he had plans to go far away to try his luck in Europe. He wanted to take me and my little brother Hassam with him. I was going home to my family after Iqbal's departure. Maria promised to keep me informed about everything that went on. Before I left for a foreign country, I'd come back to headquarters to say goodbye. The last night Iqbal and I were together, we got up and met in the big room where we talked and talked, just as we used to in Hussein's workshop. At dawn the next day, they let me ride in the car with Iqbal and Ishan Han to the airport. Iqbal and I sat in back. From a terrace, I watched them board the plane. They waved from so far away. With a loud roar, the plane took off and flew higher and higher through the sky. Iqbal had taken the biggest kite. My heart was beating very fast. Something was wringing my heart and soul. The plane disappeared beyond the horizon. I wonder what America's like, I thought. A few days later, I was taken home. I can still remember the long journey in the Toyota van as it bumped over all the holes in the road. I can remember the countryside, part green, part gray, and flooded. I can remember the working men and the beasts. I remember the muddy dirt roads. Every time I saw a group of huts, I thought, is this my village? I couldn't trust my memory, and I was confused. The driver was kind and pleasant. We talked and talked to distract me as though he knew what I was feeling. Part of me wanted to go home. Part of me was sorry. We arrived. My brother Ahmed was now a man. Hassam, the youngest, was taller than me. Slowly, gradually, I began to recognize objects that were once familiar to me. I found my way to the well instinctively. I had gone there so many times in the past, trying to balance a jug on my head. Even the buffalo looked the same, only a little older. I cleaned, I cooked, and I helped in the fields just like my mother had done. I didn't know anything about my brother's plans, and I wasn't interested. The days and weeks passed. In the country, they seemed much longer. I finally received a letter from Maria. I can read it, and I ran to read it inside. She wrote, "Here, everything's going well." She said that Ishan Han had telephoned once from Sweden, twice from America. Maria had spoken to Iqbal, who was fine. He told her all about the speech he had given in a big city called Stockholm. He hadn't tripped up once. In fact, all those well-dressed people had stood up and applauded him. They had welcomed him warmly in America, too. In Boston, everybody wanted to meet him. And when they gave him his prize, some ladies cried. The only thing he complained about was his new shoes. They hurt his feet. He sent his love to me. They were about to return. School would resume, and later on, Iqbal would go to visit his family for Easter. He hoped I was well and wanted to know what my village was like. She would write again. Kisses, Maria. There was a folded article from an American newspaper in the envelope. Naturally, I couldn't read it, but in several places I could see the name Iqbal. And there was also a photograph of him. I looked at it for a long time, even if it was dark and smudgy. Time passed. With a piece of chalk, I made marks on the wall in a corner to keep count. 2 weeks, a month, 3, then 4. Winter passed, and the spring rains began. I stopped counting. The lame man who came to distribute and collect mail every 10 days wasn't to be seen. "We'll be leaving soon," my brother Ahmed said. When I finished my work, I would sit in the doorway and look out toward the path that led to the village. They've forgotten me, I thought. My mind went back to the kites, to Iqbal standing tall next to the carpet he had cut, to the night we crawled to the tomb to help him, to the afternoon in Lahore when we went to the movies. I thought that I didn't want to go to a foreign country, far away and ugly. 2 days before we were supposed to leave for Europe, I saw the lame man in the distance. He was struggling along the muddy paths, so this is like the postman. His bag was slung on his shoulder, and his stick sank 5 inches into the mud each step. The light was ugly that day, livid and nasty. The clouds lay low on the horizon, and everything looked spotted and black. Notice how the author is describing this setting. Is it positive or negative? That's going to give us a little bit of a clue. I watched him for half an hour as he came along so very slowly. Before he reached me with the letter, my eyes had started crying. That's the end of chapter 14. Think about, why do you think she was crying?